Thursday, September the 17th, our first committee meeting for this school year. I'm Trustee Janet Fraser, and I'd like to call the meeting to order and start by saying, with deep gratitude and respect, we are honored to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Hamasquiam, Squamish, Okameo, and Tsleil-Waututh. And with the start of the new school, and always at the start of the new school is a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, that focuses our mind that we have to learn the truth and then we have to take action for reconciliation. What I can say about this meeting is it's being broadcasted live, and both the audio and visual recordings will be accessible to the public even after the meeting ends. Footage from this meeting may be viewed from Canada or anywhere else in the world. The board has a strong commitment to ethical conduct, and this includes the responsibility of all participants to conduct themselves with appropriate decorum and professionalism. As chair of the committee, it is my responsibility to see that decorum is maintained. And what will happen is for each item, we'll have a presentation and then questions after the item. We do have another committee meeting afterwards. Preeti is chairing the Facilities Planning Committee, and so we'd like to finish ahead of the 7 o'clock start time there. And we'll start with introductions. We seem to change our setup regularly, and this time the trustees on the committee are grouped at this end of the room, very close to me. So we'll start with Preeti, if you'd like to start the introductions.
Trustee Preeti Friedkot, committee member.
Lois Champetley, trustee, committee member.
Trustee Victoria Young.
Trustee Christopher Richardson.
Trustee Susie Ma.
Dana Awida, VETVA.
David Schaub, Vancouver DPAC.
Kirsten Baker-Williams, Squamish Nation.
Jody Polikoshko, Vancouver Elementary and Adult Educators. My pronouns are she, her.
Benita Kwan, VASA.
Tyson Schmier, PASA.
Dan Blue, Executive Director of Finance.
Flavia Coughlin, Secretary Treasurer and CFO.
Cherry Mack, Supervisor of Accounting and Financial Reporting.
Paul Rosberg, Manager of Financial Planning and Analysis.
Helen McGregor, Superintendent, CEO.
Maureen McRae-Stanger, Associate Superintendent.
Allison Ogden, she, her, Associate Superintendent.
We'll just take a minute as there's a couple of people arriving, and come into the center. Okay, so if you'd like to go ahead.
Carl Janzi, Vancouver Secondary Teachers Association.
Warren Williams, President of QP Local 15 Support Staff.
Thank you. And if anyone else arrives, we'll let you know during the meeting. So our first item is an information, well, all our items this evening are information items, and the first item is the audited financial statements of June 30th, 2025, and I'll ask Executive Director of Finance, Daniel Blue, to present. Thank you.
Thank you. So next slide, please. So the draft financial statements discussion and analysis and the draft audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2025 are included in the agenda package starting on page 6. The audited financial statements have been prepared in accordance with section 23.1 of the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act of the Province of British Columbia, supplemented by regulations 257-2010 and 198-2011 issued by the Province of British Columbia Treasury Board. The financial statements have been audited by KPMG LLP, and the draft independent auditor's report for the year ended June 30th, 2025 is included with the audited financial statements. In the report, which is on page 52, KPMG LLP states, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements are prepared in all material respects in accordance with the financial reporting provisions of Section 23.1 of the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act of the Province of British Columbia. The Audit Committee met on September 10th, 2025, reviewed the financial statements, and discussed the audit findings with representatives from KPMG. The Audit Committee has recommended that the Board approve the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2025 at their upcoming meeting on October 1st. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. The financial statements discussion and analysis, which is included in the package starting on page 6, should be read in conjunction with the audited financial statements to provide a comprehensive understanding of our financial position and performance. This document provides an analysis of our financial results for the year ended June 30th, 2025, and outlines key factors that have significantly influenced our financial results. Next slide, please. The financial statement package is comprised of the independent auditor's report, the statement of financial position, statement of operations, statement of changes in net debt, statement of cash flows, the notes to the financial statements, and unaudited schedules to the financial statements. The auditor provides their opinion based on the financial statements and the notes. The audit package includes additional schedules required by the Ministry of Education and Childcare, which are not subject to audit. The schedules in the statement which are unaudited are marked unaudited. The audited statements reflect the financial results for all funds combined, including the operating fund, the special purpose fund, and the capital funds. The details by fund are shown in the audited schedules to the financial statements. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the statement of financial position, which is on page 55 of the agenda package. This statement provides a snapshot of our financial health as of June 30th, 2025. This slide shows the components of net debt, which is the difference between financial assets and liabilities. Financial assets decreased by $25.5 million, and there's information on the components of financial assets in the FSDA starting on page 7 of the FSDA or page 14 of the overall package. Portfolio investments declined by $20.2 million. During the year, a $50 million short-term investment certificate matured, and the district reinvested $30 million of those into a guaranteed investment certificate. Liabilities overall decreased by $2.4 million. Additional information is in the FSDA starting on page 9 or page 16 of the package. The accounts payable balance declined by $22.1 million. That is in part due to a progress payment that the VSP made to the City of Vancouver related to the construction of the new elementary school at Kohler Harbour. Unearned revenue increased by $6 million, which includes a receipt of $8.5 million for a 99-year lease on the southern portion of Sir Sanford Fleming Elementary, with the difference being the amortization of existing balances. Deferred capital revenue increased by $13.1 million, and details on the changes in the components of deferred capital revenue are found on the FSDA page 11 of the FSDA or page 18 of the overall package. The next slide. Tangible capital assets increased by $10.9 million. The financial statements include details on the changes in the components of the tangible capital assets, including additions and amortization, in schedules 4A and 4B of the financial statements. Those begin on page 92 of the package. Within the FSDA, there's a summary of the active projects during the year and the amounts spent on those projects. That information begins on page 32 of the FSDA or page 39 of the overall package. Next slide. This slide summarizes the capital fund accumulated surplus at the end of the year. The internally restricted local capital service surplus was $11.8 million as of June 30th, 2025. This includes $2 million for the new elementary school at Cole Harbour. It includes $3.2 million for the replacement school at Lord Roberts Annex. And the available contingency reserve at the end of the year was $4.3 million. There are additional details on the local capital in page 32 of the FSDA or page 39 of the overall package. This slide shows our accumulated operating surplus. You'll note that the accumulated operating surplus declined by approximately $1 million year over year. At the end of our 2025 fiscal year, the amount that is reported as the contingency reserve was $6.09 million. Our policy 19 accumulated surplus, which was revised earlier in June of this year, indicates that the VSB should maintain a contingency amount of at least 1% of annual operating expenses. That amount would result in a target contingency reserve of $6.59 million. So you'll see at the end of June 2025, we are about $500,000 short of that. The next slide. So this slide shows the statement of these next two slides shows the statement of operations. Overall revenues were $11.9 million higher than budget. This is revenues across all funds. MECC grants were $0.7 million higher than budget. Included in the operating fund, the grants were $0.9 million higher than budget, with the difference being in the special purpose funds. There are details on the MEC grants and how they're calculated in the package, beginning on page 26 of the overall package. The positive variance in other grants is primarily in the special purpose funds. Tuition revenues were $1.6 million higher due to higher than expected enrollment and also application fees and other fees which are related to international tuition. Approximately $5 million of the other revenue amount was reported in the operating fund. There are details on this in page 21 of the FSDA or page 28 of the package. Some of the key components of that variance were school-generated funds, which were $1.9 million higher than budget. Other grants were additional $1 million higher than budget. And ancillary revenues, including project management fees, parking revenues, and other fees make up the rest of that difference. Rentals and leases increased year over year as demand over the past year has increased, and rental agreements entered in 24 and 25 were higher than previous years. And investment income exceeded our budget by $1.3 million as interest rates were higher than anticipated during the forecast period. Sorry, interest rates were higher than forecast during the period. Next slide, please. Sorry. So this overall expenses were $8.2 million higher than budget. There were two unbudgeted items that were processed at the year end as part of the year end audit. The first was a $3.7 million adjustment to write off the costs incurred to complete project definition reports for capital projects that have not been funded by the province. This is a one-time adjustment for costs which had been incurred in prior years from 2013 to 2019. It reflects the adjustment to reduce work in progress and also the deferred capital revenue that was related to those particular projects. The second adjustment is an increase to the estimated cost to settle asset retirement obligations. So asset retirement obligations are recognized on the balance sheet based on the estimated cost to remediate or to complete remediation when capital assets are dismantled. The initial estimate of $67.1 million was reported at the end of the 2023 year. The adjustment that we're booking this year is really to recognize the impact of inflation in the current year on that balance. Both of these amounts, which together total $7.1 million, are non-cash adjustments. They do not impact the amount that is available to spend on future tangible capital asset additions. This slide summarizes the results of the operating fund. The expenses are reported by function as per Schedule 2C, which is on page 84 of the package. As part of the development of the 25-26 financial plan, a full review of historical formulas used to produce the Schedule 2C was performed, and the allocations were updated to better align with ministry instructions. The table above shows the budgets by function, which were included in the 24-25 amended budget in the column which is marked 2025 budget, and also the restated 24-25 budget using the new allocations. Those amounts appear in the 2025 restated budget column. So operating fund expenses overall were $1.4 million less than budget. There's a couple of positive and negative variances. Instruction costs were $1.5 million higher than budget. This is largely due to employee benefit costs, which were higher during the year. On the other hand, district administration costs were $2.5 million lower than the restated budget, and this is due in part to lower than expected legal and software costs. However, there were also legal and software costs were about $3.8 million lower than budget. Salaries and benefits were higher, which reflect increased benefit costs, and also the staffing costs for Vancouver Project Office. Overall, the operating fund is reporting a deficit of $1.2 million compared to a budgeted deficit of $13.8 million. There is a discussion of variances in the FSDA beginning on page 18 of the FSDA or page 25 of the overall package. In summary, the key components of the positive variance are the fact that we actually exceeded our budgeted revenues, and some of our expenses which we had anticipated for the fiscal year have not been fully incurred, including legal costs related to contingent liabilities, which were recorded in the risk section. This slide shows the sources of revenue. The primary source of revenue for the operating fund is MECC grants, accounting for approximately 90%. The other components are listed on the screen. The next slide shows the components of the operating fund expense. Salaries and benefits typically account for the largest portion of that, and in the 2025 fiscal year, salaries and benefits totaled 89% of total expenses. Services and supplies were about 9%, and you can see the other components there. The next slide shows summarizes the results of the special purpose funds. Special purpose funds reported revenue of $107 million compared to budgeted revenue of $104.4. Details on the special purpose funds are in the package starting on page 33 of the overall package. Revenues in special purpose funds are recognized when qualifying expenses are incurred, and they may vary significantly from year to year. So there were a number of the positive and negative variances within the individual special purpose funds. The revenue by fund is actually provided in the package beginning on page 36. A couple of the highlights were that the Classroom Enhancement Fund was about $1.6 million higher than budget. And also school generation funds were about $1.3 million higher than budget. So those two together were $2.9 million higher than budget. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide summarizes the results of the capital fund. The capital fund reported a deficit of $11.1 million compared to a budgeted deficit of $2 million. This reflects the 2 year-end adjustments, the write-down, first of all, the write-down of work in progress, the $3.7 million, and second of all, the increase in the asset retirement obligations of $3.1 million. Those amounts account for the majority of the difference between the actual results and the budget results. So the risk section of the FSDA outlines risks to financial results. That is in the package beginning on page 38 of the FSDA or page 45 of the overall package. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Right, thank you, Dan, for your presentation. And I'll look to everyone in the room to see questions. Warren, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Just for clarification for myself, when you speak to instruction, you're talking about teachers and support staff, EAs or SSAs, SSBs?
Yes, instruction, it's essentially anything that happens in schools, all the staff that we have connected directly to schools, all the supplies that are allocated directly in schools.
Okay, thank you. And any other questions? Susie? Can you use your microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I have a series of questions, but I'll do one at a time and then let other people go. So on agenda package page 20 of 100, there's a graph, a chart there. And under the 2024-25, I noticed that there was quite a big jump from 2023-24 to 2024-25 in terms of the asset retirement obligations. Can you explain why that went up so much? Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Oh, sorry.
Sure. So the asset retirement obligation was an accounting standard which came into effect at the end of 2023, which requires us to provide for an estimate of the cost to remediate buildings when we dismantle them, and the typical cost that's associated with that is asbestos, removing asbestos. What happens is that original estimate in 2023 had not been updated for inflation in the past year, and so the adjustment between 2024 and 2025 is really an adjustment to reflect the estimated cost increase due to inflation of remediating those assets. Yeah.
Do you have a follow-up on that one? Not on that one? Okay, I'll see if anyone else. Christopher, is your hand up? No? Okay, you'll just... Jody, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I actually had a question on the same page, which is page 27 of the package. And that's where it's talking about the enrollment. And I'm just wondering, I'm not sure this is the right place for this, and I know you'll tell me if it's not, but I'm just wondering what the impact is of the steady increase of enrollment on the facilities plans for the district vis-a-vis the audited statements.
I think because this is the audit statements for last year, we set the budget and this is how we did. So I think you're right, this probably isn't the right venue for that, but okay. We do have facilities planning later.
Okay, thank you.
Susie, we can go back to you.
On agenda package page 21 of 100, in figure 11, there's a difference in the disposals column, quite a big difference between 2024-25 versus 2023-24. What was that due to?
Sorry, you said disposals?
Yeah, it says under there 3.86, and then in 2023-24 it was 7.99, so it decreased quite a bit.
Can you remind me which page you're on?
I'm on figure 11, agenda package, page 21 of 100.
Okay.
So the practice is that when an asset gets to the point where it's fully amortized, we do what's called a deemed disposal, where we remove both the cost and the accumulated depreciation, so that those amounts actually offset each other. So the reason that the amount would be lower this year is just fewer assets got to the end of their useful life.
And go ahead, Susie.
Thank you. So now on page 27 of 100, in figure number 20, under online learning, non-graduated adults and summer learning, are those bodies, like student actual bodies, or is it FTE?
This table reports all the numbers in full-time equivalent.
So it's FTE, right? Thank you.
And I'm going to step in because I think Jody, you had a question, and then Warren. Oh, no, you're just waving. Oh, to Carl. Okay, so Jody and then Carl.
Thanks, Chair. Just had a question to sort of follow up on Warren's question about the employee groups. And I'll refer to a chart. Just put it somewhere now, where there was the instruction and then there was other professionals in terms of the salary expenses. I'm just wondering, here it is. It's on page 23 of 100. And so this one does break it down by employee groups. So it has teachers, support staff, educational assistants, substitutes, principals, vice principals. And then there's a 3.6% category called other professionals. And I'm just wondering who that includes.
Flavia?
So the other professionals category includes exempt staff and some paraprofessionals that are maybe members of a union, but they don't meet the criteria to be categorized as teachers or educational assistants.
Just a follow-up question then. Through much of the initial part of this agenda, there was a lot of reference to vacation pay, sick pay payout, some of those kinds of benefits being part of the expenses. I'm wondering if there's a place where we could find that broken down by employee group.
Flavia?
Any payouts related to vacation or leaves are part of salary expenses, so there's no specific breakdown between regular salaries and the cost of leaves for any employee groups.
And sorry, I forgot. I said I would let people know if anyone had joined the meeting, and I apologize to Henry Munns from QP407 who has joined the meeting. So thank you for being here. Carl, you're next. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Carl Janzi, Vancouver Secondary Teachers, through the chair to whomsoever can answer. It's actually a follow-up on Jody's. My first question was going to be, looking at that same figure 14 salaries by employee group. So under the other professionals, then you said exempt staff and paraprofessionals. Would that include DOIs, associate superintendent, the superintendent, directors, executive directors, managers, and coordinators? All of those groups?
Directors of instruction, it's interesting one. It actually belongs in principals and vice principals. Okay. Everybody else would be in other professionals.
Now we're back to you, Susie, if you have more.
Thank you, Chair. So on page, agenda package page 36 of 100, which is figure 29, and I'm looking at the school generated funds column, which is way near the bottom, and I'm looking at the 2024-25 actuals, which is 7.63. How does that number relate to agenda package page 26 of 100, figure 17, because in that one, under school-generated funds, other revenue, the actual 2024-25 actual is 14.56.
So some school-generated funds meet the criteria to be considered special purpose funds, and those are the amounts which are in the figure 29. The amounts, depending on the level of specificity around the use of those grants, they may be considered restricted for accounting purpose and included in special purpose funds. The others are the ones which do not meet those requirements will be in the operating fund on figure 17.
So if I could step in and say, can you give an example of something would fall in each of those categories?
So in order to meet the special purpose funds requirements, it needs to be fairly specific. So fundraising for a particular trip, like a band trip to Europe, for example, for a particular school year would qualify. Fundraising for the band overall probably would not qualify.
So the 14.56, that's a broader category? Is that what you're saying? That the one in figure 29 is more specific, where the amount in figure 17 is broader and they don't fit that criteria? Or I'm confused.
So the one in figure 17, the restrictions around the use of the funds would not be specific enough to qualify as special purpose. And then there.
Can I ask, is the special purpose fund amount a subset of the 14.56?
It's not. So the amounts that you see on page 26 of the agenda, they are only amounts that are reported under the operating fund. So those are amounts raised at the school level, but not meeting the criteria for being reported under under special purpose funds. And what you see on page 36, those are additional funds fundraised at the school level that can be reported as a special purpose fund.
Thank you. I think I understand it. I'll think some more about it. Thanks.
Jody, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I had a question about, I noticed in, well, it's sort of throughout, but begins on page 30 where there's a bit of a breakdown of the expenditures. And I noted that there was a decrease in transportation costs. And I'm wondering if someone could let me know where we would see the savings or related increases in expenses to the program closures, like the core program, SELC programs, and how the closure of those programs has overall impacted the budget. Feels like it's very disparate throughout this document and hard to track. So I'm just looking for some help.
Just to clarify, this is not a budget document. This is the financial statement discussion and analysis reflecting the financial results for the year ended June 30th, 2025. For information about budget, you should refer to the financial plan that was tabled in the spring, the 25-26 financial plan.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I understand that, but this is a document that demonstrates where the savings and expenses were not what were expected or how they changed over time. So I'm asking about the impact of the inclusive education program closures on the overall budget for last school year.
I think we'll have to take that away. I'm not sure how that will be accounted for in the finances, if there would be any changes. So. Carl and then Susie.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a question. I'm looking at page 13 of the package. It's figure 1, statement of financial position, the general overall one. I'm noticing that, and it's reported later that in 2023-24, we put $50 million, well, the district, sorry, not we, the district put $50 million from the cash and equivalents into a portfolio investment. And then it's later reported that the next year they put $30 million into another investment. And I'm looking down through the columns and I don't see a $20 million addition anywhere. I see that we're actually still, our surplus is dropping every year. So I'm curious to know where the discrepancy between the $50 million from 23-24 is, where does the $20 million go, I guess, is the question. Thank you.
The section that you're looking at is the cash and cash equivalents. And the most direct correlation is with our accounts payable, where you see a big drop between the years in accounts payable other. Our liabilities at the end of June 2024 were $115 million. At the end of 2025, they're only $93 million. And Dan, in his presentation, highlighted that was a payment that we made to the City of Vancouver for the new school at Cole Harbour.
Follow-up, Carl?
Yeah. So looking then, so we have a debt obligation in 2024 that we paid with some of that money. So I'm looking then in 2023 when we had, my assumption is from what you're saying that we had some money, we put in a GIC, we took it back out, we paid off a big chunk of money with it, and then we reinvested the rest. Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Susie?
This is the last question. So on page 38 of 100, figure 31, under amortization of tangible capital assets, it shows zero, like no line items, and it just showed a line item 3.71. Is that going back to what you were saying about the change where we have to report?
So I believe you're referring to the line that is titled Write-Off Down Buildings and Sites. And yes, we did not have any items of this nature in past years. This is one write-off that had to be recorded in the current year, and that's why it shows just for the current year an amount.
What was the write-off?
So this was, again, in Dan's presentation. It relates to costs incurred for project definition reports that were completed for potential capital projects that did not get funded by the province.
So if I may just get some clarity on that. So we've already paid the money to have the PDR done. Now it's just being recorded in, that amount is being recorded in the accounts.
So essentially, when we pay the amounts, we recognize the expense. So prior years' financials would have reflected the expense related to the project definition report. But from an accounting treatment perspective, we recorded that expense as a work in progress building because it would have qualified as part of the overall building cost if the project would have been funded. But because the projects did not get funded, we cannot maintain this work in progress buildings on our books, so we have to write it off.
If I could follow up again on that, on page 13 of the report, agenda package page 20, it talks about one of the paragraphs at the bottom talks about during the year work in progress of 4.83 million was written off. Is that inclusive of the 3.71 plus additional write-offs?
So the amount of work in progress, a portion of it had been funded by deferred capital revenue. So the amount, the 3.71 is the net of those two.
Jody, did you have another? No.
I do, but I'm okay if a first-time speaker wants to go first.
David from DPAC?
I was just wondering what was the project?
It's a variety of projects that were considered in the past. There would have been David Thompson, seismic is one of them, multiple project definition reports for Carlton, Killarney, secondary, Falls Creek. Yeah, those are just some examples.
Thank you.
Carl, you have another one?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So I'm on figure 29, page 36, and I'm looking at Sept, which is the is the Classroom Enhancement Fund. You'll notice in 2021, it was $33 million. It was about a third of all of the funds that we got as special purpose funds. Last year, it was over $49.5 million, which is creeping up close to half of the special purpose funds that the district gets. What that fund is for is to balance out classrooms that can't be balanced out, right? That's the purpose of it, right? It's recognition that class composition and or class size is difficult in a given school. I'm gonna connect everybody to page 88 of the package, what actually goes through and explains what that Sept looks like. So in the year, we have $49 million. $41.9 million went directly into staffing at schools in the year. But you notice that there's a column that says remedies next to it. That remedy is in the tune of $3.3 million. That remedy is when you can't actually meet the need of the classroom. And what that actually means is that the first thing that province does is they convert it to time, and they give you a bank to pay release so that teacher can have time off. And if they can't, it gets converted into money. And they have an actual calculation for that. And a unit of remedy is $62 per person, per time, per month. So if you divide $3.17 million by 62, you get something around the 53,000 times that a classroom's needs weren't met. We have 10 months, well, actually, we only have 9 months in a school year. So you divide that again, 54,000 divided by 9 is 6. So that means 6,000 times this school year, a child's need or a classroom need was not met, and there was nothing that could be done about it. So my question generally is, we've gone from 33 million in 2021 to 49 million in 2025. How are we gonna stop this, right? Like, seriously, do we have a plan in place for next year? Because I'm looking at we don't have remedy, because I'm looking at the 2026, and that, if people remember in the discussion, that's one we can't know because the year hasn't started. So that's sitting there and open. So my question here is, looking at these numbers, looking at the fact that we've got 6,000 times last year that a classroom's needs went unanswered, and we had to turn around and say, okay, sorry, but we can't do anything about this classroom, and we have to provide remedy. And that's hopefully a teacher who will get to take release time, but if we have the issues we have, that didn't happen either. So I guess the general question here is, and I recognize that this isn't a budget conversation, this is a review conversation, because I didn't hear a plan in the budget one. So I'm hoping the walk away from this is we actually have one, this year, because the growth is not sustainable. It's not. So yes, my question is are we going to create a plan? Is there a commitment to create a plan to deal with Sept and remedy?
Thank you. First, I would like to just clarify the three categories of Classroom Enhancement Fund funding that we receive and what they are for. For Classroom Enhancement Fund overhead.
Can you just refer to the
so
page
that's
of the
on
report?
page 88. So the Classroom Enhancement Fund overhead, those are funds that the province provides for costs related to the administrative costs related to the implementation of the Restored Collective Agreement language with our teachers' unions. And this includes also the cost for TTOCs required when a teacher funded under the Classroom Enhancement Fund staffing is absent. For the Classroom Enhancement Classroom Enhancement Fund staffing column, the funding that is received here is based on an annual submission that shows how many additional teachers the school districts have to hire in order to meet collective agreement language with respect to class size composition and non-enrolling ratios. The increase year over year in recent years was in part connected to the increased enrollment in our school district. Also, the increased complexity of classrooms that required us to add additional classroom teachers in order to meet collective agreement requirements. So also in here we have the increased cost related to labor settlement with teachers. And finally, in the Classroom Enhancement Fund remedies, actually the remedies accrued in 24-25 only amounted to 1.59 million. The higher amount shown here also reflects the letters of understanding that have been signed with the secondary teachers and elementary teachers that reflect the use of remedy others. Those are monies that the government is giving back to us because we now have a letter of understanding for remedy earned in prior years. So the plan going forward is to continue to follow the collective agreement that we have in place. And I know it's a bargaining year, so whatever the collective agreement says, that's what we will do. And we will continue to follow government direction with respect to claiming amounts that are eligible under these three categories of funding.
Follow up, Carl? Yeah, so
yes, staffing one, yes, I'm part of timetabling, so I fully understand how Sept works from providing staffing based on balancing loads and adding extra. That, yes, get that. The clarity I'm seeking is in the section under remedies. So we have deferred remedy beginning of the year, 1.37 million. My understanding is that is carryover from previous years. The 3.345582 million is new funding for remedy for this 1 year, not carryover, nothing. It's actually arrived because of, and then you get backs and forths and changes and stuff, and you wind up with the 1.355, the 3.714, and then the final total down the bottom. But the 3345582 is remedy arriving because of unclaimed, it's either to prepare for people to be able to take, who have it, to take TTOC, or it's for remedy that was never actually used in the year it was used. So So
that is not. This is a very confusing section of the statements. I can point you to the Ministry of Education website where they show the specific amount provided in the current year. It's the K-12 funding full year grants, and the amount that they provided just for the current year is the 1.59 million. This, unfortunately, this amount is a little bit of a collection of both prior years and current year remedy. The current year funding is only 1.59.
Thank you. Jody?
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for the time to ask these questions. Really important to our members and to our organizations. I wanted to go to page 24 of 100. And I just have a question because there were a number of places in here, namely educational assistants, support staffs, and substitute salaries being like millions of dollars less than what we're budgeted for. And so I'm wondering if someone could speak to why the education costs fell below the budget in such significant ways. And the piece that comes with it is the comment on the teacher salaries, where it explains that part of the problems were due to the increases in the negotiations of the collective agreement. But my understanding is that those increases are funded by the provincial government. So it seemed odd to see it in this context as explaining away a budget overspending. Sorry, that's two questions in one.
Flavia?
Under teachers, there are two parts of the variance explanation. One is variance year over year, and that includes the increase in costs related to general wage increases. So that's why we do have to talk about the increase related to collective agreement negotiated wage increases, whether or not they are funded. They are part of the variance year over year. We also experienced average salary for teachers that was higher than what we budgeted. And this is really something that we make a best estimate at the budget time, but we don't know exactly how much the teachers are going to be paid until we know who the teachers are and how they increment throughout the year on the pay scales for teachers.
And I think the second question was about substitute costs.
I can clarify if that's helpful. There were three categories: the educational assistants, the support staff, and the substitutes, where the salaries came in well below what was budgeted for. And given what we're hearing from members about the conditions in classrooms and the lack of staffing for what's needed, some of what Carl just spoke to across the table there, I'm wondering why there was fewer staff in those categories than what the board budgeted for, all other things aside.
Flavia?
So what we have experienced with many of our employee groups is both significant absences during the year and periods of temporary vacancy in positions. I know for educational assistants, SSAs, we have a very high percentage of unpaid leaves that are taken during the year, and you would see an increased cost in our substitutes as we try to fill in those temporary vacancies with substitutes to the best of our ability. And similarly in support staff, we have, so for support staff in particular, we budgeted estimated overtime costs for custodians, our building engineers. Those costs were not required during the year, so we realized savings because we did not have to incur that overtime through the year. And this it's a little bit the opposite. Like we have seen increase in overtime costs when we had building engineers that were absent. We couldn't replace them, and the remaining staff had to work the overtime.
Sorry, thank you. I have a question about the CEF, and on page 28, it says that we estimate we incurred an additional 1.4 million to meet the CEF requirements, and I'm curious about how do we get to the CEF grant with the ministry, and how do we fall short? Is that also a question of not quite knowing what happens at the beginning of, or making a best guess at the beginning of the year and then things play out in a different way?
So this is related specifically to the cap that exists on overhead costs. So over time, as we have hired more teachers that are funded under the Classroom Enhancement Fund staffing category, and those teachers avail themselves of the leaves available in the collective agreement, and we replace them, our replacement costs now exceed the funding that is provided by the province by 1.49 million. And this amount varies from year to year. And we make a point of disclosing that in our financial statements and sharing it with government in hopes that government is going to start funding this additional cost that is absorbed within our operating fund.
And is that a situation that's Vancouver specific, or is that for all districts in BC?
It is province-wide.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we have had a lot of questions. I don't see any more hands. So thank you, everyone, for your questions on that. And it's there's a lot of information. It's good to understand and get clarification. So the next item on the agenda is the recruitment update, and I'll ask Executive Director of Employee Services, Michael Gray, to present on this item.
Your mic, use this one.
Okay. Thank you. Who would have thought? Maybe that's a good thing for people if its mic is broken. So again, through the chair, good to see everybody this afternoon. Appreciate the time on the agenda. Just before I get into the merits of the slide and some of the comments on the slide, just to give context to the comments this afternoon. I think we've all experienced and acknowledge that it's a very challenging and complex labor market that we're dealing with now. One of the complexities that creates challenges in terms of recruitment is the issue of work-life balance and people wanting to balance between full-time work and part-time work, and we're seeing that with all our employee groups, which is behooving us to look at for new opportunities and different solutions than we might have otherwise looked at in the past. So with that said, where we spend some of our time and energy in recruiting staff throughout the 12 months of the calendar year, I just reiterate, it is a 12-month business. It's not just something or activities that happen during the school year, is attending faculties of teacher education, and we're very fortunate to have strong partnerships with faculties, among others, UBC, SFU, University of Calgary. And one of the areas that we've been spending time in a particular focus is faculties that produce French immersion teachers, which is a challenge to recruit not only in the province of British Columbia, but elsewhere in Canada. We spend time at recruiting our SSAs in particular through the partnerships that we have with Burnaby, Langara, EA programs in particular. I would say that we've spent a lot of time trying to come up with different solutions with the challenges of not just recruiting, but also retaining our SSAs. And there'll be, I think, more opportunities for dialogue with our union partners, not just for SSAs, but other job classifications where it's more challenging to recruit and retain. And just to acknowledge there's provincial bargaining that's going on right now for our teachers and our support staff workers. One of the creative solutions I just want to acknowledge that comes to mind in the past year in particular was the work with QP15 and the Indigenous education workers. So I do appreciate Warren being part of those conversations and the support that we had from the union to help support the recruitment and retention of Indigenous education workers with our QP15 partners. So to look at other creative solutions that might be different than we've done in the past, but also do it in a manner that respects the intent and the spirit of a collective agreement in terms and conditions, obligations, but to be open-minded. So we've really appreciated the conversations we've had with a union partner, not just one example. We've also attended community events, most recent of which was this past Sunday, the Main Streetcar Free event. We had a few trustees drop by, so we really appreciate that support. We had lots of staff and community members drop by our booth, Main Street and 12th on Sunday, notwithstanding the weather. So really appreciated that opportunity to demonstrate the importance that VSB has in our community and supporting our community members. Next slide, please. So just want to highlight a few metrics, and this is not inclusive of all the hiring or an exhaustive list in all we do. So the last 2 school years, 2023, 2024 school years, and again, I reiterate, it's a 12-month business. When I remember first being in the K-12 sector in late 90s, early 2000s, you might argue it was a 10-month business, and now it's really evolved to 12-month business. So I'm grateful for the hard work of the recruitment and the staffing teams. The last 2 school years, we've hired nearly 800 new staff per year. Just for the time period in between March and school year startup, which is critical to a smooth transition and startup, we've hired 195 teachers, 104 SSAs, 32 supervision aides, 14 exempt staff, and 17 school administrators. So that's a lot of hiring, a lot of onboarding, a lot of orientation for new staff in our system, but it's important that our recruitment efforts are ongoing, continuous throughout the course of 12 months to make sure that we're meeting the system needs and supporting students that are entrusted to our care. Next slide, please. So recruitment moving forward. One of the things I've been really grateful for has been the input and conversations we've had with our employee group partners and suggestions and observations for recruitment and onboarding and retention practices. Us attending, continue to attend job fairs, whether it's at faculties of education to hire teachers or community fairs or support staff fairs is important. You can appreciate the labor market is very challenging and very competitive in the Lower Mainland, and we'll continue to focus in some specialty areas, SSAs in particular, French immersion teachers and technology teachers. And one of the things that we're trying to spend our time and energy to is to work more efficiently, to look at the current processes that we have, re-engineer processes to expedite the time from posting to onboarding, and make sure that we have new employees in our system in a timely manner and that they see and feel there's a connection or connectivity to their prospective employer and to their employer once we've signed them as an employee with the board. Continue to work with our BCPC partners. They have a recruitment services branch. I really appreciated the input and guidance and advice that we've had from BCPC in terms of our current practices and how we can move forward. So with that, Chair, I'll end my comments and certainly welcome any questions from our colleagues here this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Preeti, you have a question, then Lois and Victoria.
Thank you, through the chair. I have a few questions actually, but I'll go one by one. May 2025 applied to education job fair that was done in Toronto. I'm sure we can find many qualified people in the Lower Mainland. Not sure why the decision was made to host a job fair in Toronto.
Through the chair, staff attend many job fairs, both within the Lower Mainland, provincially, other provinces in Western Canada. And one of the considerations that we had in attending Toronto, there was 2 staff members from our team, myself not included, so just to highlight that, that attended the fair. Looking at the cost of living in Toronto is comparable to Vancouver. So that was one of the driving forces. I've attended those fairs many times when I was in Ontario, and there's a significant amount of individuals, teachers, and support staff that attend those fairs. So just from past experience and the ability to bring individuals from Ontario to British Columbia. And part of my experience in Ontario was when there was the new collective agreement in 2016 and restored collective agreement language. It was a regular occurrence to see school districts from the British Columbia attending that applied education fair in Toronto. So we also, just to be transparent, we also attended a recruitment fair at a Faculty of Education in McGill for French immersion teachers. So just to highlight the fact that we attend recruitment fairs in British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario. So I hope that helps address the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Lois?
Thanks, Chair. My question is the numbers that you've shown in terms of like the hiring that you've done most recently. Can you give a sense of like, are these numbers high or low? How do these compare to vacancies that we have currently? How do they, like, year over year? What is this sense? They just seem like good numbers to me, but I want to get a sense of a bigger picture.
Thank you for the question. One area I just want to highlight was in the last 2 years, so for the 24-25 school year and the 23-24 school year, we hired approximately around the same number, close to 800 per year. So there's some consistency over the last 2 school years. Going into part 2 of the question about the number of vacancies that we had, going and being here, just thinking of Labor Day weekend, going into day 1 on the first Tuesday in which students were present, we were able to have all the vacancies filled either with a permanent or temporary or TTOC. We still have some vacancies that we're filling right now as a result of new leaves. But part of the hiring, to your point, Trustee Chan Pedley, was doing things a bit different. For example, in the elementary panel, we are intentional about starting the recruitment for elementary teachers that would be new hires and onboarding them earlier. So as we're going into the start of the school year, we made sure that we had new teachers that were in front of students on day 1. So, yeah. So thank you for the question.
Victoria, and then Susie.
This is piggybacking off Trustee Chan Pedley. Can you clarify, was it 800 hires each year or inclusive of the 2 years?
Thank you for the question. Each year.
Each year, so that's approximately 10% of our workforce? 10.34?
800 divided by 7,700.
Yeah, it's just over 10%.
My accountant's friends to my left.
Yeah. So is that, have we seen that sort of hiring year over year? And just to ask a similar question to Trustee Chan Pedley around, is that what we see in other districts? Or is that the expectation is to be hiring 10% of a workforce annually? Do we see that also happening next year, potentially? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Other jurisdictions, other school districts, I would say that a common discussion that I have with my colleagues in other districts in the Lower Mainland, I can just speak to because we have a group of HR, labor relations practitioners that regularly meet and share. I would say one of the pressure points that they have in their employee services or human resources department would be the ongoing requirement to be hiring. I think what I see is some common themes similar to VSB, that they're struggling with the hiring of French immersion teachers. I think they're struggling with the recruitment and retention of SSAs or EAs. They're struggling with the recruitment of some specialized teacher or paraprofessional positions. It could be speech and language pathologists, counselors, probably jump to mind school psychologists. And I'm just having a brain cramp right now on the part one. Trustee Young, could you just remind me again? Sorry, I apologize.
No, I was just wondering if to hire 10% of your workforce each year. I know that since COVID, it's been a struggle to find appropriate people for roles. I'm not in your line of work, and so I was just looking for a little bit of clarity on if this is consistent in other areas, if this is normal, and if you think that this will be what will happen over the course of the next school years.
I would say in the VSB, in the last 2 years that I've been here and talking to the recruitment team, it's been a fairly consistent demand and work in the last several years. I would say in terms of a metric, I'm not sure what the metric in other school districts would be in terms of what they're seeing. I think maybe to answer the question in a slightly different way, if I could, would be, I think school districts, us included, are seeing the need to hire more casual or temporary staff, if I can, use that term with respect. And we're also seeing an increased desire of professionals wanting more work-life balance. Like a tangible example would be when we're offering continuous contracts, people wanting to, is it possible to work 2 or 3 days a week? I don't necessarily want to work 5 days a week because maybe they have another job or they might have another obligation, or it could be family or other obligations. So that's something that we have to be creative about, and I think frankly open-minded about. How do we best accomplish that? And some of those challenges and complexities in the labor market do not necessarily jive with current collective agreement processes and practices. And I just say that with respect. So that behooves us to go back to the comment about having frank and open discussions with our union partners about how can we focus and come up with creative solutions. And I have to say, to be fair, all our employee groups have been open and have had those conversations with us. So we're grateful for the fact that we are getting a lot of cooperation from the different partners in terms of how we can do things differently in a very complex and challenging labor market. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have, Helen to comment.
Sorry, and just to provide a bit of a broader context, this is a conversation among superintendents across British Columbia, but across Canada, around recruitment, retention, looking at workforce. Different districts at different times have different ages of employees, have different needs. Impacts of cost of living. We know the costs in Vancouver are significant for anyone wanting to live in this lovely city. So it is ongoing conversations and collaborations both provincially with the ministry, BCPC, and other organizations. And I'll also say, as part of organizations across North America, similar conversations being had everywhere. How do we take a look at our workforce? What are the possibilities as we move forward? So I wouldn't say that we're unique. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up are Susie, Jody, and Lauren.
Thank you, Chair. So we have hired 800 over the last 2 years. How many have we kept?
Thank you. Just to clarify, 800 in each of the last 2 years, so 1,600 in total. Thank you, Trustee Ma. I don't have the retention rate with me. I can provide that after the meeting as a follow-up.
Thank you. I'd really like to know that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susie. And to Jody?
Pardon me. Thanks, Chair. I was just wondering if you could speak a little, thank you for the report and for all the effort that's been done to address the recruitment and retention problems in the district. I would just say at the start that I think the missing piece is workload. I think that's a factor in why we're seeing attrition, why we're seeing people wanting to work part-time in addition to work-life balance and things like that. And my question was, of the breakdown of employee groups, the folks who came to work at Vancouver School Board, where did those employees go? Like, are they all working directly with students? And how is that? How does that go hand in hand with the sort of provision of educational services? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think the data on the slide in terms of recruitment metrics highlights the vast majority of the hiring that we've done have been school-based positions, so teachers, SSAs, supervision aides in particular. So I just highlight those particular areas. And again, the list is not exhaustive of all the hiring that we've done, but I would say that the vast majority of hiring that we do and the energies focused on by the recruitment team are for school-based hiring. Thank you.
Warren, hi.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Michael, for working with us as best we can in terms of recruitment and attending to the needs of the students within Vancouver. I have a couple questions. One of them is around the leverage tech to expedite the process. And I'm wondering, are we still using Make a Future for as our recruitment, the folks that are doing our recruitment or vetting our applicants? We are, okay, and if so, then do you know if they're using AI as a mechanism to vet? Because I know that that's happening. I was just listening to an article around, it concerned the United States of America, but the employment rate or unemployment rate for Black Americans. And the report found that a lot of the recruiters were using AI, and they were vetting the applicants, and certain if they didn't find certain words in the application, even though people were engineers for NASA, they weren't getting jobs, right? So I'm wondering if Make a Future is doing that, and if so, is there a concern in terms of recruiting? Because I know from the last number of years, I know many people have applied to the school board, and we've had this conversation, and they haven't been hired in the Vancouver School District, but they've gone on to other districts and been hired. So I'm just wondering if that may be part of the reason why. And then I have another question for you.
Thank you for the question, and I should acknowledge thank you for the question from Vase before yours, Warren. So just for the record, since I was, instead of nodding, I'll say that we still are using Make a Future, as are, I think, most districts in British Columbia. Other school districts across Canada would use a tool similar, Apply to Education, and there's some relationship between Make a Future and Apply to Education. So using some type of recruitment platform is super important in terms of efficiency. In terms of your question about AI, Make a Future hasn't introduced any tool that is implementing AI to help facilitate the recruitment of staff. That being said, when you look at the use of AI, there's various implications in the employment relationship, be it from the hiring process, during the employment relationship, in the retirement phase. So I think using AI in the future is going to be necessary to make sure that our recruitment and retention practices are the most efficient and the best they can be. But with using technology, there has to be the due diligence that is done to make sure that it's, I don't think any different than in school-based situations where you want to leverage and use technology, but make sure that you understand the implications of using that technology. So I think going forward, that's an area that we're going to have to explore and get comfortable with and make sure that if we're going to utilize AI, then it's going to be done in a manner that expedites and assists in the recruitment process, but also does not disadvantage any of our applicants. And once we're in the employment relationship, it also doesn't disadvantage our employees. So
okay,
I hope that helps.
Well, a follow-up to that then. So I'm taking that as a yes, not right now, but going forward, sounds like. And what types of stopgaps would be in place? You probably can't answer that question right now, but to me, it would be an important piece of the recruitment puzzle.
Yeah, I think how I would answer the question is might be to note the comment, but also to say that if we're utilizing and relying on AI and other technologies for our process, we want to have conversations with our employee groups to make sure there's transparency in that respect.
Okay. And I had another question. So this again is Michael and I have talked about this a few times. I haven't necessarily brought it to the board, to this committee, but in terms of recruitment, the CTV did a article last week or 2 weeks ago, and they talked about what your hourly wage would have to be in order to live, to just rent, not to purchase a home, but just to rent an average rental property in Vancouver and or Toronto, and it was $36 to $48 an hour. Our SSAs are making just above the living wage. Now, I'm not talking about bargaining here, because bargaining deals with wages and benefits, et cetera, at the provincial level, and they deal in percentages of wage increases over the year. But the provincial government also funds school districts with a set amount of millions of dollars. Vancouver is 594. I think I couldn't barely see it, but I think it was 594. And then the districts allocate how they're going to use that money. And so I'm wondering if there's been any conversations in terms of increasing the wages of certain employee groups so that they can actually live in the city that they work in and be, able to sustain themselves and their family. Currently, I'm sure you all know, it's very difficult to do that at the current wage. And that's something that the district could do. It doesn't have to come from the province.
Thank you for the question, Warren. Do you mind just clarifying? You had mentioned 5.9 for just that piece.
I think that was the part of the revenue from the province. Okay. In that pie that was on the. I'm sorry.
So Helen,
Chair,
if you'd like to make a comment.
I could ask Flavia to respond to that question, please. Thanks. I'm behind Michael, so he couldn't see me. Thanks.
So Warren, as you noted, wages and benefits are subject to collective bargaining. We are at the bargaining table, and that's where this conversation should be had by the parties.
Through the chair?
Yes, go ahead.
As I said, we are bargaining right now, and wage and term is through bargaining right? At the provincial table, right? But at the local table, we don't talk about wages, and we don't bargain wages at the local table. So my bargaining committee with the Vancouver School Board, who sits with staff, Michael's one of them, we don't talk about wages because that's done at the provincial table. What I'm talking about is how the board allocates its money that it receives from the province, and has the board looked at increasing the general wage for some of their staff to bring it up to a point where they could actually live in the city they work in. Right now, for SSAs, the general wage for Vancouver School Board SSAs is just above the living wage of Vancouver, which is different than what I'm talking about bargaining. I'm talking about what the board could actually do without being at the bargaining table.
And I will restate that is the conversation to be had at the bargaining table, and that is the direction that we have from the provincial government. Wages for our unionized staff get negotiated at the bargaining table.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
So what you're suggesting is that if the Vancouver School District wants to increase the wages for their staff outside of the whatever percentage it's going to be this round of bargaining, the same would have to be done for every school district in the province?
Support staff bargaining is happening at the local level. It's not provincial level bargaining. So individual school districts negotiate within the mandate that is provided by the provincial government.
Yeah, you're correct. We're bargaining locally, but we're also bargaining provincially. And so what I'm talking about is money that's allocated to the district to operate. And part of the operating budget is staffing, funding for staffing. And so the district sets what the staffing, what the wage for an SSA is going to be, and the province through bargaining, well actually unions through bargaining, increase that wage percentage each year. But they don't set what the hourly wage is going to be here in Vancouver, because the hourly wage in Vancouver is different than the hourly wage in Burnaby and Squamish and Prince George. Districts set those hourly wage rates. So that's what I'm talking about.
It is still amounts that have been bargained historically. They are not set individually by the school district. They are the parties bargaining those rates historically, and then yes, in recent year they have been only incremented through the process that exists, but those have been bargained locally throughout the years. And I will refer you back to the bargaining table with our colleagues.
Okay, thank you.
So we're right on 6:30, and we still have one report left. So if there's any last questions on the recruitment, David, if you'd like to go ahead.
I just had a question regarding future recruitment updates, because they've often gotten the same questions, and I was wondering if in a recruitment update we could get a breakdown for each staffing group, the current staffing level, the number of leaves, the number of hires, and the goal for that. Because we had repetition of the same questions regarding recruitment updates, and if that was visible in the update, it would be, I think, more understandable to all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Helen, you like to speak to that?
Thank you. We'll take that away.
And Susie, I think the last question goes to you.
This is going back to the earlier question about how many have left. I know that in the past, this committee had talked about an exit interview, and I'm wondering if we are incorporating that or if that's still in the development stages.
Thank you, Trustee Ma. We're in the process of revising the practice and the tool, including a consultation with our different employee groups. And we've had conversations most recently with those employee groups at the end of last school year. And there seems to be a strong desire, which we're grateful for, to sit down with us and develop a tool that is going to meet the needs of the employees and help us better understand the recruitment and retention issues that we have in our system.
I think that's great. I'm very interested to see what the tool is going to look like and the data that comes out of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your questions. And I think having this report reminds me that all the numbers about the employees and the students in the financial statements, they're all real people, they're all real students, and it's necessarily a little abstract and dry when everything's accumulated and presented as, nearly $600 million of operating funds. But I appreciate having this conversation to remind us that each school has so many dedicated staff in it serving the needs of the students, and also the staff outside the schools but still supporting the students. So if we can move on to our last report on the Wellness and Occupational Health and Safety update, which will also be presented by Michael. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you, and be mindful of the time and the next meeting. I'll try to go through this quickly for our colleagues in the room. In terms of wellness update, appreciate the opportunity to speak to this afternoon. Just some of the professional development sessions that we've focused on and that are upcoming. For the first time, summer 2025, we had a men's health fair that was attended by 75 participants from our grounds, our maintenance, operations team. It's first time focus for us in this area, and we had a lot of positive feedback. I'm not sure if my friend to my right, Henry, was there or not for that, but appreciate the fact that we could offer that to our staff in those areas. There's upcoming Pro-D event at Air Camber Secondary. There's going to be 17 sessions that are offered with diverse program offerings, including, again, men's health and financial management and some other areas that we're seeing utilization in our employee family assistance program. And lastly, in terms of the professional development sessions planned for this year, the big North Star event is in February, I think February 24th, Pro-D Health Fair, and that planning is ongoing. And appreciate the support and the work of the wellness team and the wellness committee made up by our various employee groups to help inform the work that we do there. And lastly, initiatives for this school year is a review of our employee family assistance program. It's a good practice to review program on a regular basis. We want to make sure that we're ensuring the needs of our employees and their needs are being met. One of the metrics we look at is the utilization rate within the program. Right now, the utilization rate, and this is over the last 9-month period from January 1st to September to date, is just a bit below the average utilization that you would see in the sector for employee family assistance programs. So sometimes when you see a lower utilization rate in an organization or relative to the industry standard, one of the areas that you want to look at is just the awareness. Do our employees in their system, are they aware of the program and the offerings? So part of the wellness program rebranding, which is the next point, is increasing the awareness of our employee family assistance programs and the services that it offers, as well as looking at the service levels and feedback from our employee groups and employees in terms of how we can enhance the program that we have. And part of the rebranding program is more information and documents out in our system, whether it's pamphlets, it's posters, and our employee group partners are helping us with that through that process and with two goals really in mind, is increase the visibility of the program offerings and the program that we have, increase employee access to it, increase the utilization rate, and part of that work will be embedded as part of the employee orientation and onboarding sessions. So with that, Chair, I'll end my comments and welcome any questions our colleagues may have this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's covered the wellness. We also have the section about unexpected health emergencies that I think is in the report. Do you have anything else to add to that piece, or just as is?
Just for time's sake, I'll as is and welcome any questions people might have. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I'm literally looking at the last line of the report of the entire package. So it refers to admin procedures required to be adopted by December 31st, and I'm just curious what the timeline is for stakeholder input into that admin procedure, and how it will be communicated, and when that, how it will be communicated, when it will happen.
Helen, you're answering that?
Thank you for the question. We will be in touch shortly with all of the folks that we engage with around admin procedures. So you'll be hearing very shortly, and you'll get an email looking for representation in that process. Thank you.
Jody?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to just name that the last review that was undertaken by the Employee Services Division was really something we undertook really seriously and comprehensively at VACE. And I want to really give a lot of appreciation to the folks who were working in that department who heard that feedback and really made an effort to respond to the feedback in meaningful ways. And some of the changes were really reflected in the way that the EFAP program existed after that feedback. So I'm grateful that it's happening again. And I also just want to say that the EFAP is one leg of a strategy, and the piece that we need to be, I think, looking at are the systemic pieces of what employee wellness is, and what our members are telling us is that the recruitment and retention challenges lead to really unhealthy presenteeism that's harming, I think, the overall system, as well as the fact that workload for a lot of members is really untenable, which also goes back to recruitment and retention, which is the folks seeking part-time work because they cannot keep up, and exhaustion and the related medical conditions. So while I really appreciate the outreach to partner groups around the EFAP providers and the branding and the kind of advertising, I think that it's really important that we also look at the systemic barriers that our members are facing to wellness. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and noted. Thank you.
Susie?
Yeah, this is regarding the AEDs. So I have 3 questions. So the first question is, who is getting training in terms of how to use AEDs in our schools?
Thank you, Trustee Ma. That would be first aid attendants in our schools that are, it's under this QP 15 collective agreement.
So follow up to that. So if the first aid attendant is not there, there's a backup usually, right?
Correct.
And so I guess if they're the only people getting trained, those are the only people that are authorized to use them?
Thank you, Trustee Ma. Yeah, that would be correct.
Yeah. So my understanding is that not only was there this new change provincially, but there's also a change to the grade 10 curriculum where the use of life-saving measures is also part of the grade 10 curriculum, and that's part of the PE and health curriculum. So my question is, who's going to be providing the in-service for teachers, for educators who will be teaching this curriculum? Are they going to be expected to give CPR training? Are we going to be bringing in St. John's or whoever it is that gives CPR training. I want to know how teachers, how educators are going to be supported in this.
Okay, thank you. And I think Alison is the person to answer this question.
Yep, thank you through the chair. So our physical and health education teachers at secondary, many were already doing the CPR component within the curriculum. The elaborations were fully published by the Ministry of Education and Childcare this past summer. We also partner with the ACT Foundation, who come in and work with our schools and the educators in our buildings in order to provide them the information that they need to relay to students. So it's through a variety of ways that the educators are becoming trained and skilled in order to be able to deliver that curriculum to students.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if there's no more questions, then everything has been addressed on the agenda, and we will adjourn this meeting. And thank you, everyone. It's 6:41, and we will, actually, I haven't looked ahead. I don't know which month we're getting together again. We will get together in a few months. Thank you.